We are back on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. Lindsay, Patterson, Mike Santagata here. Mike, how are you?
I mean, I'm doing great. Seeing Nosferatu tonight. Heard good things
Mm-hmm.
with the wife. Heard it's not something to go see with your parents, which I wasn't going to anyway, but I've heard that. Uh, Other than that, I mean, it's great. It's holiday time, so like work's not bad, even though I am working. I don't know. It's a good time. This is like the best time of winter. There is no other time like this in winter where things feel happy. Next week it's gonna be back to depressing, or happy if the Bengals make the playoffs. Who knows?
There, look. Mike, we talked about it a couple weeks ago, and I feel like you said if they beat Denver, you would
I'm
kind
in.
of you would be in. Okay. So Mike is back in. Mike is officially back in. And look, I know that three things still need to happen, and two of which seem slim, but possibility. And we can talk.
Who predicted the Giants in a shootout against the Colts? Though, let's be real.
That was the first time they scored over 40 points and since 2019. Absolutely insane. Like, what were the chances? And Malik Neighbors just went off, that's pretty normal for him because he's awesome, but still,
Drew
that's
Lock. I
Drew
saw
Lock.
his advanced stats. Like his EPA per play was like 1.2, one of the best marks of the entire season, if not the best. I'm not sure, which was
So
so funny.
I feel like you can use that a little bit, and maybe I'm delusional when I think about the postseason hopes, but I try and think of Carson Wentz trying to still prove that he can play football in the National Football League.
Sure.
He is behind Patrick Mahomes, one of the best in the NFL. It is Carson Wentz's birthday today, so I hope he gets a win on Sunday. And then you have a guy like Aaron Rodgers. Look, people are looking at you and saying, "Are you washed? Are you done? Is it time?" Show them one more game what you can do with the Jets. Just one game. And
Kind
he's
of
big Joe Burrow. They talk to each other all the time. Help a boy out.
kind of terrified of the scenario where the Chiefs win, the Bengals win, but then the Jets lose and the Dolphins get in. I'm kind of terrified of that. Like, it's a real possibility. I mean,
Nobody wants that.
I
Nobody
feel like if
wants.
I had, okay, if you had to put like your odds on it, the most possible outcome is probably Broncos make the playoffs. You just
Yeah.
think like Chiefs are resting starters. The
Mhm.
Broncos should, but I would not say it would even be a, I don't think it'd be more than a field goal favorite probably for the Broncos. Where is that game? Is it in Denver?
It's in Denver, and they're actually like 8 points.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, I could
Yeah.
see it, but man, I think watching the past game, I was lower on them after, where that offense was putrid in the first half. In the second half, I mean, you had a big play, and then they had the
Mhm.
drive at the end. That drive was very good, but that's kind of what I was expecting them to do the entire time because that's what the Steelers' offense did. So, what was like the issue? Bengals finally were able to come up and tackle things was one thing, but we'll get to that in a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, 8 points. I mean, it's definitely possible, and they almost beat the Chiefs at full strength, but that feels high. It feels like more than a touchdown feels high. But yeah, the Jets. I don't know what that game looks like either because I'm a little scared of it. They're still playing all the starters. I think Devontae Adams said he'll play, and I
Let's
have
go,
no faith.
Devontae.
My faith in the Jets is very low. The Aaron Rodgers show has been so bad there. He's got all of his friends in every position, got everybody fired that he didn't like, and they go like 3-14 or whatever.
Yeah,
Great.
you know what? Just give the fans a win. Give the fans a win. And there's a couple things, and not to get too far into it, but it's going to be cold, and we know how the Dolphins look when it's cold.
That's fair. I don't know if Tua will play, although it seemed like Huntley was fine against the Browns, but the Browns, I think, were just checked out.
The Browns were so checked out. And honestly, when they couldn't do anything offensively, I don't even blame the defense just for being the way it
Well, it
was.
was a 6-3 game, I think, at halftime. So
Yeah. Yeah, and it was raining and everything like that. So I'm not even too down on them, but yeah, Tua to be determined if he's going to play. I know the head coach said that today that he's still not 100%. I know Andy Reid is just doing some of that coach speak because he has not. He said I didn't say that the starters weren't playing. So that's definitely something to watch because they would be off for about 25 to 26 days. So that's a long time. And look, you do not want to risk injury when you have the number one seed and your team is really starting to roll. I would be surprised if Andy Reid did that, but you still have Andy Reid on the sideline. You still have Spags as the defensive coordinator. And I try and think of, look, everybody wants to put the scenario in that the Chiefs don't want the Bengals in. Andy Reid is not going to coach like that, and Spags isn't going to coach like that.
That's fan talk to me.
I
I don't
truly
think the
believe, yeah,
Chiefs care one bit about
no,
whether or not the Bengals make it.
no, and I agree with you. It's more just injury related when it comes to sitting their starters, but or just being smart about it when it comes to health. But I truly think that you still have Andy Reid over there. You still have Spags, and I'll believe in that because I'll be delusional until I can't have hope. Because how
Yeah.
many crazy things happen for them to get put in this position right now?
What were
Honestly,
they at like 4 weeks ago? Like a 1%, 2% chance?
they were 1% 2 days ago.
2 days. Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
17% now.
Mm-hmm.
Colts
Yeah.
blowing it. That was huge. I was watching that when I was out with some friends. Like a Sunday ticket, great YouTube TV on the road. So I was just like glancing at it and was like, "Oh my god, the Giants are going to win this." I was actually with one of my Bengal fans friends as well. So he was watching too. But that game was crazy. It gives me hope that like any of these are possible because the Colts were probably big favorites. That is a must-win game against possibly at this point. I think they were the number one pick. So
They were.
worst team in the league.
Oh, their fans are
They're
so
at
mad
least
right now.
very much contending for it. I think they were the number one pick because I heard a lot of Shadur jokes about how he's not going to go to the Giants. I mean, all these teams suck, dude. He's going to go to one of them. It's like, oh, he's not going to go to the Giants. Guess who's number 2?
Mhm. Yeah, no, they got themselves out of that, so they're not too happy when it comes to the draft order, but I wouldn't be either if I was at this point in the season and they won a game like that. It was funny because I heard a Giants player say, "We did that for the fans," and the fans are like, "Where were you the last 13 games? Because you won that one for us? Great. We are so happy." But no, just overall, it's kind of wild. It's kind of crazy. But I will say this. There are several times this season, and honestly, over this 4-game win streak, I've said to myself, oh, if they could have had one of the Ravens games, if they could have had one of the Chargers games, if they could have just made one tackle in the Commanders game, we wouldn't be relying on other teams. But at the same time, they were 4-8 on December 1st. And
Yeah.
it's going to be January 1st in a couple of days. And they're fighting for a wild card spot. The last weekend of football matters for the Cincinnati Bengals. And I will take that every day of the week when the season was so up and down, more downs than ups, to where they're at right now. And just with the way Joe Burrow is playing. And we can get to that. We can get to that game. The Saturday night game, it honestly felt like playoff atmosphere at Paycor Stadium. It was obviously their best home game of the season. They've only won 3 times at home. But Joe Burrow was just phenomenal, and T. Higgins from being limited all week in practice. I know Zach Taylor said that he texted him during one of the meetings and was like, "I'm playing. I am playing. You're not keeping me out of there." So big on T. Higgins to show up. He obviously was huge and big reason why they won the football game. But we'll start with T. T out there, 3 touchdowns on the season or 3 touchdowns on the night was unbelievable. I know they had the fumble, but more than made up for it.
They said T is going to play. And it's like, oh, and boy, did he. He certainly played. 3 Higgins, 3 TDs. Yeah, wow. I mean, what a game from him. And so the one thing is clutch time, he really showed up, but he also didn't. It was like Jekyll and Hyde in the clutch where he had the fumble and he had the false start, but then he also would just make 20-yard plays and touchdowns in that clutch time as well. So it was kind of interesting to see that. I'm glad he kept getting opportunity. I'm very glad he got another opportunity after the fumble because that is not how you want to end. That is how the Bengals have played. Like that is just what has happened to them. But that is not how you want to end the game on a fumble. You want to end if you're gonna fail, not a fluky fumble that was almost a drop. Who knows? His first fumble, I think they said since 21, somewhere around there. It's been a while since he's fumbled, and even though he does keep the ball well away from his frame for a while, I didn't see him. I watched the one TikTok where they tried to lift the palm of the helmet. I didn't see T do it. I feel like he might be able to. Mims was the only guy to do it barehanded. Gesicki could do it with a glove. Anyway, I've thought about that TikTok a lot recently. Anyway, distracting. T. Higgins was awesome, and Jamar Chase was awesome. And I cannot believe that Riley Moss was put on T. Higgins in those one-on-one situations so much. And at the end of the game, the last 2 catches Higgins had, singled up, one-on-one, press coverage against Riley Moss on a go ball, and then one-on-one against Riley Moss again in the end zone. It's like,
Yeah.
at some point, you have to just, I know maybe that goal line one's tough because like who do you have? Because Moss clearly wasn't playing well. And do you go to Damari Mathis, who I thought was better in the game, but he did go back to the bench. So they bring Moss back in. Moss started getting cooked again. It was bizarre to be like, this is their strategy. Like there's nothing you could do in this, like double, like make the Bengals run it in, make them run it in at the goal line. I don't know if they could. You could play safety's completely out of that fit. And it's a 50-50 shot on if the Bengals are going to gain yards in my mind.
There was a time Dan Orlovsky had a little breakdown from the defensive side, and he said that they were doubling up on Yoshi, and T was just single with Riley Moss. He didn't understand it.
It wasn't even Riley Moss; it was the nickel, unless we're thinking of different plays.
It might have been player you're talking about. I could have had the player.
He was on the nickel because they lined up in a 3-by-1 set on the right side. He was the innermost guy, and then he motions to the left. The nickel just follows him, shows man coverage, and then they brought a blitz or doubled. I couldn't remember, but all I remember is nobody was zoned off in the middle of the field. No hole defender, no middle of field safety. And this is low goal line. So like those are kind of like the same things. Mm-hmm. And it's just T. Higgins on a slant against a slot corner. Easy money. That was his first touchdown. If we're thinking the same play, I think.
Yeah, it was the first touchdown. It was easy. It was. It made Joe Burrow was like, heck yeah.
It reminded me of that Chargers game where the Bengals were like, oh man, we can't figure out how to get the ball in the end zone. And then for some reason, Chargers DC was like, let's send the heat at him this time. I was like, what? Why? It was like an easy touchdown. I was like, what are you doing? Did you just get antsy? Like,
AFC West, man. AFC West, the first time they start seeing these teams, they besides Spags, he learned his lesson. It's just kind of it's a head scratcher on the way they were playing him. But it's crazy because I'm sure you saw it. There was a lot of Riley Moss chatter going into this game.
I didn't understand.
Riley Moss played. If Riley Moss played,
I kind of antagonized it a little bit when the game was going on because I saw that all week, and he had. I think I saw the NFL Next Gen stats giving up 140 yards, 124 yards maybe, and a touchdown, and that doesn't even include the couple of penalties he had, and he got benched during the game. So like that was up there with what Cam Taylor-Britt did to the Bengals in the Panthers game, where you got cooked so bad, you got benched, came back in, got cooked again, gave up the game-winning touchdown. Like what? Oh man, to the people that were saying like he is like, oh, he's so underrated, like he's the factor. Like, we're just gonna put him on Higgins and let Surtain play against Chase. It's like, okay, like that they took the fan strategy. Just even there.
I feel like Joe sees that stuff. I truly do. And he's like, oh, okay. All right. Riley Moss is going to stop this.
I thought you meant Josh Allen said whenever he sees a white guy on one of his players, he yells milk check and throws it to him. I was kind of like, man, the Bengals offense that entire game was kind of built out of milk checks, out of like the 15 plus targets they threw at Riley Moss. Where it's just like, stop putting him out there.
Yeah, no, it was absolutely insane. I loved it. I love that Denver did that. I'm very grateful that they put Riley Moss back in the game, especially in overtime. But outside of T. Higgins, and I know you mentioned Jamar Chase, it sounds crazy. Like it felt like Jamar Chase had a quiet night, but he's still on 102 yards, which is just insane.
I was thinking of the big catch over Surtain on the left sideline, and that was an up and down matchup, I think, but it actually could have been better for him. Burrow, weirdly, like his only misses on the day were to Jamar, which is usually the opposite. Like if he misses with somebody else. But I felt like his only misses on that day were basically to Jamar, the out route. Another one down the other sideline, I think. Yoshi Voss. We should talk about that because I feel like he was ready. Oh, is that what you're transitioning to?
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah. I feel like he was finally the guy that we thought like we postulated he could become, where before the season, and everybody's extremely optimistic. Like, yeah, Yoshi will be an athletic guy that can block a little bit, and he'll run some crossers. That's what he did. And he was awesome. And he almost had a humongous game that got brought back because Mike Gesicki can't set his feet. Actually, I'm not 100% sure it was on Gesicki because Chase Brown motioned over, and I'm wondering, like, was Chase Brown supposed to actually move over, or did they just flip the protection? He was supposed to cross key. I don't know. You have to be in the room for that one. But I will say, Gesicki, what advantage do you get out of taking like little step? Just set your feet. Just set them. You're not running into this. I don't think it's giving you an advantage to just keep taking little steps. Oh man, that sucked. That was such a great play from Yoshi Voss. If I was about to have would that be his first not red zone touchdown, like long touchdown?
Absolutely insane. I mean, he is just starting to come up big, and there were points in the season where I'm like, "Ooh, I feel like his confidence dropped a little bit," or Joe wasn't going to him. But obviously, when you have T Higgins and Jamar Chase out there, you're going to throw to your two top guys. At the same time, Yoshi has come up big and back to back games, and it's been really fun to watch. And his confidence will continue to grow, and you want to see that. I want to see it again on Saturday night. And then Mike Gesicki, I know you mentioned him. He is just reliable
Yeah.
and reminded me that they've got to figure out a way to bring him back. They truly do. I think he is there. I know Yoshi is more of the third wide receiver type, but I would still put Mike Gesicki there too. It's been
Mhm.
really fun to see, and I think if you're Mike Gesicki, trust in it one more season, and I could see him getting a huge payday if he plays with Joe again.
I think this game, to get a little bit off of that, but still semi there, because this is the first game T Higgins and Mike Gesicki, I feel like, we're really working together. And it's always been weird to me because they don't work the same areas. They don't have to work the same areas of the field. They have been for some reason. Like Gesicki is an intermediate middle of the field, short middle of the field type guy. And then they started just using Higgins on that when he'd be in there. It's like, well, you don't have to. Like you have a wide receiver that can do that really well. And then you have another wide receiver. You're basically playing 10 personnel when he's out there. But you have another wide receiver in Yoshi Vosh that can kind of spread the field, take the top off the defense just a little bit like he did on that play that got called back. And the crossers, that's a threat, being able to catch those 20, 30-yard crossers. But I felt like the Bengals, it's very weird. I'll get to my issues, but as a whole, if you take the 10,000-foot view, I thought this was where they kind of emptied the clip and did everything they could interesting offensively, everything unique. And because I'm thinking of some of the short yardage stuff they did, like that speed option to the left. I don't know if Burrow ever had the opportunity to take that if he wanted to take it. I mean, he took plenty of hits in this game, but that's cool because that's a great answer for the front they had. It actually didn't get blocked up well, but it was a good answer on paper, and Herbert made a great play. And I'm thinking of the shovel option to the right, where it ends up in it ends up just a jet sweep. But the whole thing with an option play is there's basically two runs here. They're running power in front of that with Jamar Chase as a shovel player, which is great because I hate when it's a tight end doing that. Because the Bengals don't have a tight end that can catch that ball and just run. They don't have Brock Bowers, right? Like that's a unique talent to me. Jonnu Smith is also one of those guys where they catch the ball and they can just become a running back basically and run right through the middle. No, but Chase could. Chase is built like a running back. I think he can take power and go somewhere with it, but it ends up just being a jet sweep. Khalil Herbert, great block. I think he's a good player. I can't believe he just started now getting
We'll
snaps.
talk about it. We'll talk about him too.
But this was, to me, I thought their best, maybe not their best, but like their most unique game on offensively, game plan, play calling, and the parts we get to that are bad. You're gotta have scenarios early in this game. What was going on? What was going on? 3rd and 2 inside zone to just get to 4th and 1 and then run a fullback dive with your starting running back at fullback and a wide receiver at halfback. I mean, that is a time to bring in Herbert, right? Because at least the defense might buy that Herbert will catch a toss. I don't think they bought for 1 second that Jamar Chase was going to run anything out of that.
No.
Other than catch a pass or run a screen or something. I don't think they actually thought he was going to run a run play. So I feel like that was, and I would do it opposite, really. I would put Khalil Herbert at fullback and Chase Brown at halfback. And then what you're worried about is probably Brown. But Herbert has always been a great short yardage guy. He finishes his runs and falls forward. That's something they were missing in this offense, and I wrote a lot about it. They never used it. So that's my one issue is they're almost more personnel issue and like kind of overthinking that one. But how do you never give your MVP a chance? You give him no chances to throw in that short yardage situation. To me, he's got to throw on either one of those downs. Like you didn't pick it up on 3rd. And I'm not saying he has to, like you get a good juicy front. You can't run the ball. You give him the option to check into that. But I would call a play for him to throw the ball. And then you can check into a run there. Maybe they did. I don't think so though. Based on the formation they came out in with the personnel that they came out in, I think there was one play being run there and it was what they thought would work. And it was just the other 4th down too. I mean, yeah, the one went off Jamar's hands. Another one went off Gesicki's hands. So that one to me was more execution. But I did feel like there were moments in this game where I was kind of like scratching my head. Like, okay, are we getting too creative? Are we getting, too cute with this? And also just like the frustrating let's just run inside zone on 3rd and 2. This is not a team that can consistently pick up 2 yards on inside zone, sadly. I mean, they just don't. Inside zone goes to the guards and center. Your tackles are important. That's your best players. But when you're running that play, I feel like you're on a lot of zone plays. If you watch the center, I think you see if it's a successful block. And that has to do with the guards too, being able to set him up and being able to get him in position to make that block. But a lot of plays, if he makes the block, it's going to go for 3 yards. If he doesn't, it doesn't. Like that is, it's more true on wide zone, I think, but I think it's true on inside zone a bit too. I wouldn't have bothered with that. I got real frustrated with the play calling a little bit in the first half. Felt like they emptied the clip though. They threw everything they had at the Broncos to win this game, and they had to me, a really good offensive performance. I know it didn't look like getting points wise in the first half, but they're moving the ball up and down the field. They controlled the ball almost the entire time. I thought they kind of showed everything they had in this game. It looked like to me like they called a must-win game. Like we know the importance of this game.
It felt like that in the second half. It felt totally different. Like they were on one, and then obviously T. Higgins was too. It was offensively, I agree. There's still red zone stuff that I want them to figure out, but I think we also have to remember Denver's a good defense.
Yeah.
I know we talked about Riley Moss and we joked about him, but they have a good defense. And, Joe Burrow has done a really good job. You can even look at his first matchup. Well, the matchup with the Chargers, heard a lot going in. This is a really good defense. Joe Burrow cooked him in the second half. They're a missed field goal away from probably walking away with that one. So there are other times and plenty of times this season that he's set up to that challenge. He's playing unbelievable football. It's absolutely crazy what he's doing this year, and really hope they can sneak in with all the hope next weekend or this upcoming weekend. But 2 things I just want to hit on really quickly on the offensive side of the ball. You talked about Khalil Herbert. Obviously, we saw him just a little bit with the Chase Brown injury. I know Ian Rappaport said they are still optimistic that he could go on Saturday. Definitely want Chase Brown to be out there. Khalil had a good run. He had a nice little run in the second half, and it really helped them. Just set up for a position to score. And I was impressed with him when he was out there, and hopefully he can continue to get some more reps.
Yeah, I've liked Khalil Herbert, and when they traded for him, I thought, oh, cool, 1-2 punch. Both can be shaky in pass protection, although in this game I thought both were very good. Mm-hmm. I think it's more the mental side, and Chase Brown's gotten better at it over the course of the season, I think. Herbert and him are both physical in pass protection. That they're both willing. Difference was to me, Herbert kind of can grind, pound forward. He's actually not a top end speed guy, but he's got good acceleration. So that's why he doesn't really break off big run. He's had 3 20+ mile per hour runs by next gen stats, and all 3 of them he got caught from behind. So that kind of tells you where the top end speed. It's just missing that last gear. But Chase Brown has that gear. I thought it'd be an interesting. I thought it could be an interesting 1-2 punch, and then Chase Brown was just doing so good that I felt like he just ended up being the workhorse. So that was what it was. But I would love for more Khalil Herbert work, because I thought he was very good in this game. Thought he was consistent. Thought when he got the ball, he looked like how I thought he would. Small sample size, but thought it worked in this game. I know there were a couple of runs that may not have, but overall, I liked what I saw. And I think especially if Chase Brown plays or doesn't play, I think you should see plenty of Herbert. Like, obviously, if he doesn't play, he's going to be the number 1 guy. But if he does play, I think you should still probably play plenty of Herbert, just because you are playing for that playoff spot. If you get in, you don't want Brown to have that lingering ankle injury into next week. I think that would be the tough thing, is to go into a wild card game without him. I think they could. I think I'd like to have everybody for the Steelers game, but I think they have a better chance of getting out of Pittsburgh with a win without Chase Brown than they do of getting out of Buffalo, Kansas City with a win without Chase Brown.
Yeah, just because, 100%. It's absolutely crazy to think that all of that is even still on the table going into the last week of the season. But it is. It is a big one.
They're locked in. If they make the playoffs, they're locked into at Kansas City.
Here's how crazy it is, Mike. If everything went this way, obviously the other teams like Baltimore would have to win their game and all of that, but they would play. If the Bengals, with some kind of miracle, got into the postseason, they would play the Bills wildcard weekend.
Yeah.
If they won that game, they would travel to Kansas City divisional round.
Mhm.
If they won that game, they would more than likely see the Baltimore Ravens in the AFC Championship
That's
game.
the part I'm at. I'm not sure.
Could you imagine the
I
AFC
could
the way
imagine
this
the Raven. I think the Ravens would be the heavy favorite in that scenario to make that spot. But I've seen enough playoff Ravens football to know they could get knocked off, and then you
could
see some wild team in that spot.
Mike, Mike, I'm just here to. I mean, I know. Again, I'm saying all this stuff because, and I will say this because I don't want to jinx anything. It is going to be impossible. Probably will not happen. But if it does, could you imagine the networks for Bengals Bills if the Bengals beat the Bills? Bengals Kansas City if they beat Kansas City. Baltimore and Bengals in the AFC Championship game when these two games this year have been absolutely insane to watch towards the end. And the
Yeah,
winner goes to New Orleans?
yeah,
What?
pretty cool.
That'd be crazy. I hope that's a reality, and I know we need help. I know they need help, but we'll see. It's fun to talk about this week because we can. The possibility is still there. And obviously, we'll get more into the Pittsburgh matchup later this week. But I do want to go ahead and get to the defensive side of the ball. And one quick shout out to Orlando Brown Jr. playing with one leg right now. That's insane. And he still had a really good game out there. Um,
Yeah,
that.
he shut down Benito. I've seen the Benito Defensive Player of the Year talk a little bit
Mhm.
because of like some of the pick returns and having double digit sacks. Shut him down. One leg, and that was pretty incredible. I know the Bengals helped their tackles a bit. You know, Mims was also playing with a broken hand, so
Yeah,
combined they had 3 hands and 3 legs. They did not have
it's so sad.
4 of either limb.
MVP
Yeah.
right there.
But I thought Mims played pretty well for what he was doing, especially considering he couldn't use his hand. Like that is so important to be able to use that hand. Now they helped him a ton. They helped Brown a little bit, but they helped Mims a ton. They're just like, just don't allow these guys to get on his outside because obviously that's gonna be very difficult for him. So they kept running backs into that side and tight ends. Don't know if it was a pain management thing or whatever happened in the second half. If there's any chance he plays next week. I don't think we've heard anything yet, but
No, they practice tomorrow, so we'll get
yeah,
that.
both tackles I thought were awesome for the injuries they had, but especially Orlando Brown facing Nick Benito and coming away with a clean slate. That's pretty awesome.
All right, let's hit defense really quickly because again, there were a couple drives where you're like, okay, you got to stop him early on, and then obviously the Mims catch, it was just he caught it. What do you do? It felt like a good throw, good play, made it happen. It counted towards a
Wait, the
touchdown.
big one? Which touchdown? The second
Uh,
one?
the second one.
Okay.
I just feel like there wasn't, and I know you could look back at the review and maybe someone would be like, "Oh, was it a catch? Was it not a catch?" But he caught it, and it counted, and it was. I don't know. Wasn't a whole lot you could do. I feel like if you're on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I felt like that was a tough. I thought they played well at first, obviously. Well, not at first because they let them drive down the field, got to the line.
Mhm,
My biggest issue is just the defensive tackles I felt like didn't get any pressure, sadly,
mhm,
after Chris Jenkins' 2 sack game, McKinley Jackson sack game. I felt like they were a non-factor in this one. And to be fair, the Broncos have a good interior. I mean, Quinn
mhm.
Minor's good player. Ben Powers is a solid guard as well. I believe he's playing for them. Hopefully, I'm not wrong. I
They have a
haven't
solid
kept up
offensive
on.
line.
Yeah, we're for the brand. I have to make sure and go
Yeah,
on
man, you gotta
our
give credit where
double
it's
check.
due.
Yeah, Ben Powers, left guard. Okay, cool. That's what I thought he was. So where I thought he was. Played for the Ravens last year. Yeah, good interior for them. They've got they to me it's just the defensive tackles. Everybody, including BJ Hill, who's had a pretty good year.
Mhm.
They both were non-factors as pass rushers, and then in the run game, I felt like there were too many plays where they just let the line of scrimmage get reset, where everybody on the interior just got moved 5 yards downfield. So you're talking about like 5 yards before you even make contact with a running back. That's a really tough way to live. That not sustainable to have your defensive tackles giving up that much ground in the run game. So want to see them play better. Haven't finished my defensive review just yet. Was going back through, but the first drive and a little bit after, I was still not feeling great about them. Jermaine Pratt, though, we
Mhm.
called out like I don't know if he hasn't played very well in this game. I
Yeah.
thought his pick was a lot him, like to drop to his landmark, but then see Nick scrambling to his right, so he runs with him while maintaining that depth. Never comes up. And I know Nick's got hit on the throw a little bit, his arm, I think, so it ended up short. But I don't know. It's a very difficult throw to get that over Pratt.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe Pratt's radius on his catch radius isn't very large, but it's going to be a tough throw to make to get it over him and then get it back down while you're on the run to your right. Like, I don't know how he's going to fit it in there anyway. So great job from Jermaine Pratt on that interception. Overall, played a good game. I was pretty impressed with him. Geno Stone, though, I don't
Mm,
know. I don't know.
that one touchdown.
That one, I give, if I was grading, I think both safeties would share the blame on
Okay.
because on paper, that's Battle's guy. But Battle is supposed to get a reroute from, which would just be, this guy just running into him, just, taking up some time, making sure he doesn't get a full head of steam from the curl flat defender. But that guy was Osai. And Joseph Osai is not normally playing a curl flat zone. So he doesn't do it. So Mims gets a full head of speed, runs a corner post, which is just tough on a safety to get a full head of steam and then get a corner post against him. The
Mhm.
thing to me was I didn't see anybody on the other side. Maybe you talk about this corner route, but it looks like Stone passes it off and then kind of like half turn, half run. To me, when you pass that off and you look and you see Mims full head of steam at your other safety and you've got no threat to your side, get over the top. And that's been an issue all year with him and the safeties in general. But I think I can think of him a few times in these quarters coverage, which is what this was another quarters coverage, where he's just not getting over the top. That was also what happened in the Commanders game forever ago. Cam Taylor-Britt ended up giving up a big play. It was just like, well, yeah, but man, Stone, why wouldn't you get over the top with no threat to you? So when you have no threat, he needs to get over the top and provide some help for that guy. It should. I think you give a minus to both safeties on the play if you're grading it, and then probably a little half minus to Osai for not helping him out. Which then I also just think like when I start giving out a minus to Osai on that, I go like in coverage, like maybe I should put a half minus on the coach.
Look, we just need that defense to be average right now, and
That's
and
what it
and
was overall.
average on Saturday night, and then if they make it in, just be average the rest of the way. And for some reason, look, I've been cooking Lou all year. I've been down on Lou. Look, if he can show up when it in the postseason when they're playing with house money, if they get there, that's all that matters. But there's one more thing I want to say about the defense. All that being said, I'm not gonna lie. After the doink, I looked at the person next to me, my mother, and I said, it's over. I've watched this ending so many times this season. They are not going to win this game. They're going to lose. They had the opportunities twice in overtime and they failed, and it didn't work out for them. They've lost this game. Credit to the defense for stopping the Broncos and getting the ball back.
Yeah.
You're like, no, I am not ready to do that.
Well, it's just the drive that happened before that, right?
I know.
Well, no, that wasn't the drive before that. The drive before that, they forced a punt in a backed
Yeah,
up scenario. But the drive before that was just like
I
quintessential
know.
Bengals 2024 defense, where the Broncos have to drive the entire way down the field and mismanage of the clock too. I think that was something we kind of skipped over with the offense.
Oh
What
yeah,
a
that was.
bad group of
Ooh,
plays that
you,
was.
you were lucky, Zach. You are
Yeah.
lucky.
You could also see why some people are like, oh, just kneel it 3 times and kick it. You saw why they didn't. Like you saw
No,
why.
did you see Zach say we didn't have to worry about that? And
Yeah,
he's like,
but
he
like
didn't
you
want to answer
saw,
that.
it was kind of funny that like all the people probably felt real right about that for like 40
Mhm.
minutes, and then they line up for a 33-yarder and doink it. It's like, yeah, that's why you don't just kneel it at the 9-yard line and let your backup kicker get a shot at this. For whatever reason, I wouldn't trust that at all with the Bengals right now. I'd trust a high school kicker with it, but I would not trust this to happen to the Cincinnati Bengals. Don't know why they can't get that, but I don't trust any of those field goals right now, and they should why. That one drive though was just so tough on them. I thought they were good overall. Had the bad play we talked a lot about with Mims. Had another play with Mims where I don't know how neither guy just broke up that pass. You got them sandwiched. Somebody's got to be able to get in there and break that ball up, but they weren't able to. Hilton did, but late. Need to get in there and punch through the hands earlier. There's no way that pass should have been completed. Was
Mhm.
touchdown overtime. Shocking to me, Sean Payton didn't go for 2 because he was going to. Timeout happens, and then he doesn't. To me, that was like, yeah, what was I worried about in that scenario? Them going for 2.
Oh,
I was not
100%. I
worried
thought they were
about
going
them
for two.
kicking the PAT. and moving on to overtime like that, I'm not worried about that. Like the Bengals could definitely still lose, but that's the scenario I'm hoping for. I don't want this to come down to one play with the defense of the Bengals deciding whether or not they win. So overall, the defense was up and down, but they did step up when it mattered. I personally have a little bit of wonder if the Broncos knew, like, because they knew a tie got them in, that got them into the playoffs. Yeah. So what if they didn't? Because I was kind of thinking like that last play, they were trying to milk the clock for some reason.
Oh yeah, they would just get it if the Bengals don't. I mean, obviously they had a really good catch from T. Higgins to set them up, but overall, I mean, if they stop them, Broncos are just kneeling. They're like, we're gonna tie this game.
Yeah, but like the drive before that, wasn't it 2 runs and then a missed pass? I could be wrong. Actually, I can look it up right now.
That game took everything out of me. But I agree with you. Like, what if they wouldn't have thought of that?
It was run. Oh, was this a screen? Is that why I thought it was a pass? So I looked at it and I saw Estime run Bo Nix pass to Marvin Mims for -1 yards, and that's where I was like, that might have been a screen. So I'm not going to give them benefit of the doubt that they were trying to actually go win the game if they're throwing screen passes on 2nd and 7 with what 2 minutes and 38 seconds left. I don't think that was. That's tough. I wonder if they actually tried to move the ball down the field. Yeah, it was a bubble screen. So if they actually tried to move the ball down the field, I wonder if they win. There was 2 coward moments from Sean Payton to me where they just wanted to pick up a first down and run the clock out in that drive and not going for 2. And I think both those helped the Bengals, because I wonder if they were actually trying to push the ball down the field and score before 3rd down, do they get it? Because that was the scenario they were cooking the Bengals defense, was that 2-minute drill. Just right down the field.
That would have been terrible I mean, obviously lose the game for the Bengals, but to tie after all that, after the performance that and obviously T. Higgins had his third TD in overtime. But yeah, that would have been brutal. I'm so glad it didn't end that way. That's not how I wanted the season to really just be officially dead. But yeah, just it was awesome. On the second half, I really enjoyed it. Look, this defense still needs a lot of help. I do want to mention, as we're closing this out, Sheldon Rankins was put on the not injury related illness IR, so he'll be done for the season. A lot of reporters. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. And the only thing we feel confident in, or what Paul Dehner and Jay Morrison out there, that he played his last snap with the Cincinnati Bengals. Like, they will move.
Oh, I don't know how you bring him back at $10 million.
You can't. I mean, I think they'll bite $2 million out of
whatever.
10 million. Heck yeah, that 10 million can go to the T. Higgins fund or another fund. We'll see what it looks like.
Legitimately, cutting him and cutting Hubbard would give you the money for year 1 of T. Higgins, if not more.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy to think about. It is absolutely crazy to think about. But hey, they've got to make that decision pretty soon when the season ends, when they have until March. But we'll see what happens when it comes to the future T. Higgins. But Joe Burrow, I do want to note, he did say after the game, T. Higgins is a need. You saw that interaction with him after the game, but he's been saying that a lot. And I think that is Joe speaking up to the front office and the Cincinnati Bengals saying, yes, you need to bring him back. We will work it out. We will make it happen. And I think Joe will be a factor in that. I think not only with his vocal voice of it, but also maybe his contract. So we'll see what they do behind the scenes to make that all happen, or, if T. Higgins is here in the offseason. But hey, big football this week. That is all that matters. Mike will be in attendance. Hopefully they get the dub. We'll get a preview of that later this week. What are you going to have up on Bengals Talk?
McKinley Jackson article coming soon. I'm just going to work my way down those draft picks because I feel like that's what makes sense. If they make the playoffs, I'll start doing more regular season articles again. Like I said, I'm bought back in. I'm fully invested in the Bengals making the playoffs at this moment. But I also am just at the point where I'm like, yeah, but I'm also, thinking a little bit ahead too. I'm in, but how in?
I'm in like every other hour, and then I'm out again, and then I'm in, and then I'm like, no, all this stuff. We'll see what happens.
Chance that I saw. I'm like, I can't be like 100% in, right?
Nope, you can be 14% in because that's what their odds are right now. But we'll see. I mean, obviously, Saturday night's the next opportunity, and we'll preview that and more. Bengals get back to practice on Tuesday afternoon. Make sure you follow Mike over on X, Bengals_Sands. You can follow me at Ellen Diaz Patterson. Thank you, as always, for listening to It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati, and have a happy new year.